Good evening, my name's Richard. I'm going to tie a Soldier Palmer from the Fly Dressers Guild Bronze Award this evening. There are lots of better tyres and more knowledgeable tyres out there, but from a quick scan it's not always easy to find the information that you need to be able to tie a good award fly. What the assessors, I'm told, are looking for is proportions and consistency. So the Soldier Palmer, here are the three that I tied for my bronze award, has a red wool tail, a palmered cock hackle over a seal's fur body, and then a hen hackle. So the cock hackle will be slightly stiffer than the hen hackle, and will create more create more vibration in the water and more disturbance in the water. The hen hackle is softer than the cock, and that is going to move much more like the legs of an insect. It's going to be going to have much more life to it. So you've got the contrast of trying to move the water and create a disturbance to attract the fish, and then the natural movement from the hen to persuade it of the life of the fly. So what are the assessors probably looking for in this fly? They're going to be looking to make sure that the tail or the wool doesn't bulk up your body too much. They're going to be looking to see whether you're able to dub seal's fur or seal's fur sub, and it's horrible stuff to work with. It's really tough. And they're going to be looking at the proportions, as I mentioned. So they're going to be looking to see the cock hackle coming to the point of the hook just below, and the hen hackle to be about 1.5 times the width of the gape. The gape is the distance between the shank and the barb of the hook, or the point of the hook. Right, let's see whether I can remember how to tie this in any style. Before we go on to the tying, a quick word on capes. So two different areas of the bird that we take, or the rooster that we take feathers from. The first is the saddle, which is the back. Imagine you were sitting on the chicken, or the cockerel, and so it's falling off the back. And those feathers are likely to be longer, more consistent hook size that they cover. So if you buy a saddle, this is a genetic saddle, so it's been bred for fly tying, then you're going to get a consistent size of fly out of it. You'll get probably two different sizes of hook that you can work with, maybe three. We've then got the capes. So here is a hen cape, and here is a cock cape, and these are taken from the neck of the bird. And as you can see, the smallest feathers are at the front and the largest feathers are at the back. Now you're going to be tying three flies which are meant to be as similar as possible, which means that you're going to want to take your feathers from the same part of the cape each time. And I will show you how to measure up the feathers against the hook in a moment. But bear in mind that if you want to tell the difference between a hen cape and a cock cape, the feathers of the hen cape are rounded at the top, and the feathers of the cock cape are much, oh, we got one, here we go, are much pointier. So cock capes are pointy, hen capes are round. Right, on that note, let's have a crack at this fly. So, I'm going to tie this on a Hen's BL 254, size 12. I have on my computer next to me the Fly Dressers Guild instructions so that I do it as they are suggesting. Right. So let's start by whipping on. Now, when we whip on, it's very tempting to start up against the eye. If you do, you're probably going to run out of room later, because by starting a couple of mil back from the eye, 2 mil back from the eye, you can remind yourself that's where you want all of your materials to finish. And that means that you'll have time to do a nice neat whip finish, or space rather, to do a nice neat whip finish at the end. So when I whip finish, when I tie on, I come over, I go towards the eye once, and that just creates a bit of tension on the thread, and then I can start coming back over the thread. If I pull the thread out tight, square to the hook, then as I whip back, I naturally get touching turns, which doesn't matter so much on this fly, because actually we're going to be putting a dubbed body of seal's fur or seal's fur sub onto it, and that means that we don't, we're going to be masking all of this anyway. Right, so increase the tension on the thread, down I go. Now if I stopped above where the barb of the hook would be, and I have my wool. Now if I simply tie this wool on, and what they want you to do is tie it on and then double it back. If I were to simply tie it on like that, the bulk underneath would be huge. I mean, I'm already using a 14-0 thread called Griffith's Shear. It's got good strength for its size and its cheap as chips, but that will reduce the bulk that I'm tying with anyway. But actually, if I tie that on, then double it back as they suggest, you are going to end up with the fattest body, and it's just not going to work. It's going to end up being lumpy. You're going to crowd the gape of the hook. It will look horrible. So what we're going to do is take that off, cut a length off, and then see how this is a multi-ply wool. So I've just whipped off a couple of one of the 3 strands, so it's 3-ply. Now if I tie it in, loop it back like they ask, whip it down on top. But what I'm doing is a couple of whips, and then I'm pulling it tight, because that will squeeze a lot of the air out. And I'm going to whip it, tie it back up to a few mil short of the eye to leave myself room for when I tie in the hen hackle at the end. Now, because I haven't done this in a while and I didn't actually check whether I wanted 1-ply or 2-ply, I'm just going to snip through there and then tease out the fibres. I've got a brush here. Just see, is it going to look a nice bushy tail. That's not going to be too bad. There we are. Okay. Apologies. Once we've done that, we are going to tie in the gold wire and then dub the seals for. So back we go. And I'm doing touching turns on the way back just to compress that wool. Okay. Now, the other thing to note, I'm tying in all my materials in the same place. So I'm tying them onto the hook shank on the side facing me, or if I want them to sit on top, as I did with this, I tie it in on the side, move it up on top, and then I bind it down on top, and I make sure it's on top all the way along, otherwise it's going to get twisted. So I was holding the wool out here to make sure that actually it sat on top of the hook shank all the way along. Right, so we need to tie in our gold wire. Once you have tied in that tail, after that basically you're tying things in the order, or the reverse order that you're going to use them. So this is going to be almost the last thing. The wire is going to be almost the last thing that we manipulate around the hook. Right, next up, the seals fur or seals fur sub. As I said, this is horrible stuff to work with. So I'm going to grab a bit of it and then rub it really hard in the palm of my hand to soften it up. You can use a coffee grinder if you want, but basically you just want to break the fibres down a little bit to make it a little bit more pliable when you're dubbing. And with dubbing, a little dubbing goes a very long way. We're going to try and make this dubbing noodle as thin as possible. There are different ways of doing this. You could do a dubbing loop and put all of the dubbing into the loop, twist the thread. You could split the thread, put the dubbing into the gap between the thread, and then twist the thread to bind it in place and then wind up. Or what we're going to do is, having worked this really hard, really got it hot, really broken it down, then teasing it out again. So I'm doing that off camera. So I'm getting all of the strands back into the same direction. And just rubbing it really hard together. Okay. Then I'm just teasing that all out into one line. Now, I have a tendency to lick my finger to make it a little bit tacky. Then lick it one more time. Now, finger goes there, and I'm going to pull the finger that way. Thumb goes in my side of the thread, and I'm going to push the thumb that way. So the finger's going towards my right, and the thumb is going towards my left, and it's always in the same direction, so that you're not untwisting, you're always twisting it together. Now, and it's just a few fibres, and then what I'm looking to do is get it wrapped around the hook shank, around the thread rather. Then I can go over 1, 2 turns. Now I can gently twist and tighten. So twist and pull towards me, and because it's trapped in with these first couple of turns, I can now get a really nice fine dubbing over the thread. Then I'm going up in touching turns. It's becoming a bit sketchy there, so I'm just going to pull down and tighten on it again. Look at how thick the dubbing is here. To give you an idea, what have I got here which can really show you? Lip balm. So that's the lip balm right next to it. So it's really, that is twice as thick as it's going to be once I've teased it down and round. Maybe 3 times as thick. You really don't want very much. Yep. And then once we're finished with this, we're going to be teasing it all out anyway. They suggest a tapered head going towards the eye so that the hen hackle can sit backwards, so that it's not just bunching out at the front. Right, that's nice and steady most of the way along. Next in, we need the cock hackle. So I was going to show you how to measure up for a cock hackle. Now what I probably should have done was do this whilst, or before I put the materials on. So I'm going to whip finish off, and then I will tie back on in a moment. So there are hackle gauges that you can use to measure hackles, but assuming you don't have one of those, and they are largely unnecessary, I think, they can be quite nice and fun, is put your hook in to the vise, and then find a, I didn't mean to pull that out, find a hackle, and you don't want to pull it out yet because you want to know exactly where it came from, and we're going to just put it over the hook and do that, and we can see that's far too long. It goes way past the barb, so need to find a smaller hackle, and the shorter hackles will have smaller fibres down the side. So let me put this one, this is, and I can do that right by the barb, right by the hook. We might get away with that. It's fractionally longer than I would like. but I don't think we've got much which is going to be shorter than that on here. So I'm just experimenting with different parts of the cape. Like I said, the smaller feathers will be at the front, and sometimes to the side you'll get small feathers too. So I'm going to take a feather from over here, just going to pull it forwards and it'll come out, and then it's fractionally longer than I would like, and it'll be longer at the base than at the tip, whereas the genetic hackles will be a fairly standard length all the way along. So given we will be tying 3 of these, which are meant to look exactly the same, it's then worth plucking out a load of feathers from exactly the same spot, or feathers just surrounding it, because that way you'll know that all your feathers are going to be roughly or pretty much the same, so you can achieve a standard size or standard look to your flies. Because if you take a feather from here and then you take a feather from up here, it's all going to go horribly wrong. So once you've taken a feather out from one from a place and you're happy with it, then take another 4, 5, 6, however many you think you're going to have to tie to get those 3 identical flies. Right, let's put this hook away. Pop our fly back in the vise. Tie on again. Now how do I prepare this hackle? I'm going to put all the feathers, all the fibres, perpendicular to the stalk by just holding the tip, then pulling down the feather, and you can see there, they're all sticking out to the side now. I'm going to be tying it in with the shiny side facing forwards, and I want it to wrap round this way and sit side on. So I'm going to strip the fibres off the left side of the feather, and then I'm going to trim the fibres on the right side of the feather up to the same height almost, not quite but almost, to within 0.5 millimetre of the rachis being the stem of the feather. There we go. And what's that going to do? That's going to mean that when I tie it in, the thread will catch on these fibres here and tie it nice and securely, and then because there's a little bit less feather on this side, when I start turning it will naturally fall to this side, so it'll naturally start to, here we go. The last few fibres. Right, it's going to be way too much feather there. Waxing your, I haven't waxed my thread for the dubbing, but I am going to for tying in the feather. It gives you so much more grip on the stem. Just a little bit of gentle wax in there. And right. shiny side forward, in we go. And again, I'm tying it in on the side of the hook. 2, 3 turns of thread, undo. Let's try that one more time. 1, 2, 3 turns of thread. And next up, I need hackle pliers. Where have I put my hackle pliers? Somewhere under this mess of a tying desk. There we are. So I've grabbed it by the tip. If you pull hard, it will come out, or you will pull off the tip of the feather. So I'm just stroking the fibres back, 1 turn at the head, and then starting to palmer down the body. Now I'm picturing, I want to do about 4, maybe 5 turns, so I'm picturing the shank of the hook, and I'm thinking, where do I want it to cross in front of me each time? So once there, because they want to be even turns. Brushing the fibres back while I'm doing it. That's going to be too close. 2 turns. 3 turns. 4 turns. Hoo-hoo. Right, I am going to have to, so I've not got quite as much feather here as I'd hoped. I'm going to have to pin the feather using my finger. Just release the tip, grab it back. Oh no, it's gone wrong. Unwind it. What I can do is I can actually make the turns a little bit more open, so a little bit more space between them. Just right. And right. 1 turn at the head, and then, oh no, and just too much pressure, as I mentioned. Hardly takes any pressure to lose the feather. Okay, so I'm just brushing the fibres perpendicular and square, and this time I've pulled it too hard and it's come out. This is an extremely good lesson on how not to tie in the cock hackle. Right, this time I tied it in with 5 turns. And 1 turn at the head. Oh. What's going on? 1. Right, so I've done my full turn, and now I'm going to come round These are not, there's a reason that I don't use hackle pliers very often, largely because I don't do much palmering. Okay. Right. 1. I'm actually going to take this feather out now. It's becoming too warped and twisted. You can see I can get it back a bit, but it's not as good as it was. So I will take another one off from the same spot on the cape, which is about here. And as you remember, I was just pulling down, strip away the fluff, and there we go. And reapply a bit of wax. Okay, let's try again, shall we? 2, 3 turns, and you can sit side on. I'm just going to get back 2 turns. Actually, no, I'm not. Yep. I can tie it off in a moment. Oh, sorry, trim it off in a moment. But first, let's see whether I can palmer it properly this time. Get the fibres all going in the direction I want. Right. 1. And now I don't need to worry about it pulling out because I've got a couple of turns on there. And 1 turn back. Pulling the fibres down into the side. Right, that first turn was far too close. There we are. Just gentle pressure. All I'm doing is I'm putting my finger in the loop of the clamp, hackle pliers, and just keeping tension on the feather, but never pulling hard. Four. Brush those up. Okay, the feather's a bit longer than I would like. Now, I've been coming over this way, over the top with the cock hackle. So I'm coming back the other way with the tinsel. Now, as I do this, what I want to do is I want to tease out the fibres of the cock hackle with my dubbing brush. Oh, sorry, with my dubbing needle. So that is now stuck because the wire has caught it in place. So now, as I come over, wiggle my wire, I'm making the same number of turns in the opposite direction as I did on the way down. So I'm basically trying to come across the cock hackle in the same place every time. See the cock hackles getting trapped there? Just tease them out with the dubbing needle. And then we're going to tie off. First of all, I'm just going to trim away this horrible piece of waste from the cock hackle. There we are. And we get rid of the very end of the cock hackle, which was down at the back of the fly. Put my dubbing needle down again, which was foolish. There it is. And there aren't many fibres trapped on my side, but I can see lots trapped on this side. Tease them out. Yeah, that cock hackle is a bit big. And then we're going to put a hen hackle through as well. So again, I'm looking down in this area, down in this area of the cape, because that is where I think the right size will be for a sort of size 12 hook. And I'm looking to get something which is 1.5 times the gape of the hook, so a little bit longer than the cock hackle. Strip off the base of the fibres. There we are. This is tied off. So I can now worry it away. If you've got decent scissors, never use them to cut wire, otherwise they will not stay decent for very long. There we go. Again, a little bit of wax onto, worrying the wire just means twisting it repeatedly in the same direction until it snaps, and conveniently it will snap where it's pinned by the thread. Right, where is the wax? It used to be a yellowy colour. It's got so much rubbish on it these days that it now blends into all the other fly tie materials. There we are. Right again, just going to trap it on the side of the hook. The angle we want to tie it in. Okay. And that bit of waste is over the eye, which is a pain in the neck. I've got a cauterizing tool here. I can just burn it away. Another solution would be not to have the waste going near the eye. And that way you'll be able to get at it much more easily. Right. So hackle pliers again. And oops, you're meant to be using a red game for this. I haven't got a red game to hand, so I'm using a green Wells. And round we go, just brushing the fibres back. Whoopsie. A lot of people put heat shrink wrap onto these hackle pliers to give them a bit more grip. I should do the same. So. Right. One. And that's gone horribly wrong again. Well, not horribly wrong, but... Right. Take that one out. Find another one from about the same place. I can see the gap from where I took that one. This is a beautifully soft cape from hen cape from Cook's Hill, who provide very good value for money capes. Okay. Here we go again. One complete turn and a half, and then up we come, trap it with the thread. Again, too much tension and you'll pull off like I just did. Fortunately, I had just managed to what had I just done? I just managed to trap it with the thread. Now I can trim off the waste. One way to do that: hold your thread tight, taut, but not too tight, so you don't want to snap it. Grab the waste end of the feather and yank back. Okay. Now, brushing it all back. Now I'm going to create a neat head. So brushing it, wet my fingers, brush all the fibres back. Build up that head. I'm using 14-0 thread, so it takes me a few extra turns to build this up. Then we're going to whip finish. Do it by hand. You can do it with a whip finish tool. It's entirely up to you. I've got some horrible gunk on my whip finish tool. Yuck. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's simply a question of varnishing to get a nice bright shiny head, and trimming all of your tails to the same length. So I wouldn't trim this tail until I had tied all the flies I was happy with otherwise. And then I would practice trimming the tail length on one which had something wrong with it, so that I knew what felt like a good tail length. So I'm just going to brush out the tail. Then I reckon that's going to be about right. I don't want to trap any of the cock hackles when I do it. There we go. That's gone all nice and fluffy. And then what you want ideally is a bit of Velcro. I don't have any to hand. And you just want to tease out the fibres of the seal's fur to make it nice and rough and make it semi-translucent. Oh, I've got some Velcro on here. So I'm just going to brush it gently. What I don't want to do is rip out the cock hackle or rip the thread off the head or rip out the wire. But teasing out the seal's fur or the seal's fur sub, and you end up with a lovely bushy fly. Right, I hope that's been useful. Any questions, do let me know.